في أكبر الكتب.
Congratulations, you have found the Lambcast, the official podcast of the large association of movie blogs, also known as the Lamb. The Lamb is the largest collective of online movie blogs and podcasts with 2,000 members and counting. Every week on the Lambcast, various members of the Lamb community get together to talk about our favorite subject, movies. So bookmark the Lamb and follow us on social media. Be sure to join us each week to hear a lively discussion of films and movie-related talk from our members. Join the flock at largeassmovieblogs.com.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Lambcast. My name is not Richard Kirkham. It is Matthew Simpson. I am subbing in for Richard this week as he is unavailable. Since I'm the perennial host or guest on the Movie of the Month episode, he asked if I could take this one over, and so I am. This month, we are talking about a noir classic. There were several options to choose from in our poll, but ultimately 1955's The Big Combo was the winner, and we are all excited to talk about it. But before we get going, let's meet our guests for this week, starting with Mr. Howard Casner. How are you, Howard?
I'm doing pretty well, actually. So,
excellent to hear. And also joining us is Dave Anderson. How are you, Dave? Tell us how you're doing.
Doing really good. Excited to be talking about this film because it's one of the film noirs I had not yet seen. So, ready to get on with it.
Yeah, me too, actually. I would be curious just to start. Howard, before we get going, Howard, have you seen this? You've seen this before, I'm assuming, right? Like you probably
this is my third or fourth time.
Awesome. Would you care, just because I feel like if you've seen it a couple of times, would you care to give us a quick rundown of the very basic plot of the movie, just for everyone who hasn't seen it, which I had assumed that most of us would have. I'd be the odd man out. But it turns out that you're the only one who had seen it before. So,
well, it's one of those film noirs that's sort of late to the discovery game, which is why not a lot of people have seen it. It's certainly not up there with things like Maltese Falcon or The Big Sleep. So that's sort of why not as many people have seen it, but it's been a movie that's been rediscovered as film noirs become more and more popular and people are looking for more and more films that they actually haven't seen and that have strong aspects to them. Basically, it revolves around a police detective who is desperate to try to stop a growing gangster who is slowly taking over the town or the area. Cornell Wilde plays the lead. Richard Conte is the chief bad guy. One of the reasons, besides being someone who wants to bring down this mobster, is he has a thing for the mobster's mistress. But he's been stymied. He has trouble making progress on the case until he brings everybody in, and including the mistress who tries to kill herself, and she mentions the name Alicia. And from that point on, that is what is driving the story.
Yeah, it's a really interesting and like convoluted but straightforward in that weird way that noir films tend to be. Like the good guy is after the bad guy. He's in love with the bad guy's girl. There's a girl in love with him. And there's a couple of mystery players, a couple of memorable henchmen, and a pretty stacked cast of talented performers. Thank you for the rundown. You had seen this movie a couple of times. What is your history with it, Howard?
Well, I can't remember when I first saw it. I mean, I became interested in film noir somewhat in college, and then it just grew and grew and grew. So along the way, somewhere I don't remember, I saw it, and had a very interesting reaction to it, which we'll talk about later. There's probably no need to get into the supporting characters, the hired henchmen, which are for me the most fascinating aspect of the story. I think the second time I saw it was on TCM during Pride Month, when they were showing films that had some connection to gay aspects. And it's not my favorite film noir by any means. I think it has a lot of issues, but it's very entertaining. It keeps you going. It's a very, in many ways, clean story as it leads from one to another, to another, to another. So I enjoy it. It's a B movie, so
Yeah, but it
it's
is,
a little above it.
and it's a fun one too. Thank you for that. Dave, how about you? What is your history with The Big Combo?
My history goes back 4 days. When I heard this was the one selected, I scrambled to find it, and unfortunately, the best place I found it was on YouTube, so I had to sit through a lot of commercials. And when it comes to film noir, I'm fairly late in the game, and I didn't really start getting into the genre until I began reviewing physical media about 15, 20 years ago. And so I'm always on the lookout for, another film noir I haven't seen, because it's still new to me. That being said, I did eventually enjoy this one. And I'll get into my opinion a little bit later as well. It's definitely one that I think requires a little more patience than the average film noir, and it did have elements that surprised me. One of which Howard just touched upon. That it was an element that I didn't expect, and I thought it was well handled and kind of a neat touch considering the era, when the film was made.
Yeah, I think we're all dancing around something that we'll have to talk about.
Well, I'm only dancing around it because I want to talk about it in more depth later. So that's the only reason.
Fair enough. Well, for my part, it's interesting. Dave's history goes back 4 days, which is approximately 4 times longer than my own. I had never seen this film. My history with it goes back approximately 12 hours at this point.
Oh, I'm a seasoned pro.
Yeah. I found it on Tubi in Canada, which was a very interesting experience. I'm not sure how it looked for you, Howard, but for me, the version on there is not very high quality, and the color or lack thereof is interesting because it seems to be bouncing back and forth between I'm guessing the print is just old and that they scanned is old and terrible because it's sometimes it's sepia and sometimes it's black and white and sometimes it's almost color. It is a very interesting way to watch it.
Yeah, that wasn't true for me when I saw it on Tubi. It pretty much, for the most part, retained the classic black and white elements of film noir. It's hard to say, though, because around the late 50s, they started using television technology to film movies so they could look good on television. So in the later film noirs, sometimes you'll see a certain flatter image that isn't quite as sharp. I don't know if that's true here or not, but the version I saw was actually very good. It looked very good.
Yeah, the version I saw was clearly it was probably, to be fair, it was probably like a DVD scan of an older print. It wasn't terrible. It was fine. But I found the movie to be immensely enjoyable. Exactly the kind of mystery that I want film noir to be. Let's move. Let's move on just very briefly into like just a brief discussion of the plot. It is a little bit, I would argue, convoluted, but in that way that film noir often is, in a very enjoyable, like not hard to follow, just a lot going on. Um, I love that it. Me personally, I'm just going to start. I love that it sort of drops us into this place where like there's no inciting incident. It just drops us in. Lieutenant Diamond is like, I got to get that Mr. Brown. And Mr. Brown is like, oh, curse that Mr. Lieutenant Diamond. And also the girl is there and he's in love with her. And like, it just drops us right into the middle of the story in a way that I feel like if this was a more modern film, it just wouldn't, you know?
Well, the inciting incident in this case is the girl's suicide attempt. Because that
Yes,
changes
for the
everything.
main plot. But I just love that it comes in.
But you're right.
Personally.
It starts after everything has already happened.
Yeah, like all of the like setup is not assumed because they say it in the first couple of minutes, but like it just drops us into a place where all the pieces are already in place. There's no place setting, and it just sort of trusts us to be like, cool. And I feel like a lesser movie, or at least a more modern movie, would give us 20 minutes of setup that we don't have here. How did you guys react to the plot in general? And just without spoilers for right now, let's just briefly talk.
Well, for me, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, and Dave, you can start us off.
Oh, okay. I do appreciate some movies that kind of drop you in seemingly mid-plot and kind of force you to participate by putting the pieces together yourself. That being said, this one, for me, the plot grew more interesting as it went along. It was kind of plodding at first. I don't think its main character, Lieutenant Diamond, is a particularly interesting protagonist. And so I wasn't as engaged with him as I was with all of the surrounding characters, the antagonists in particular. And it didn't help that I was watching it, and every 10 minutes I'd be forced to watch commercial breaks. But once it got into the meat of the story and certain elements were revealed, it got very interesting. The second half of the film is a lot more fun than the first.
Yeah, I would also agree with that. I think what Howard was saying about the inciting incident being the girl's suicide attempt is definitely true, and that's what really kicks things off. Howard, how about you?
Well, I think I agree with much of what Dave said. Not only there are some interesting aspects to the detective's character, especially that he actually treats women just as badly as Richard Conte does. The difference is that he comes to realize that he treats them badly, and Conte never does. But he isn't that exciting. And one of the problems is Cornel Wilde. Cornel Wilde was a big star, but he was never a very good actor. And my favorite story about him was when he was trying to get a home in a gated community, in a closed-off community. And they said, I'm sorry, we don't take actors. And he says, I'm no actor, and I have a clip book full of reviews to prove it. And it's true. It's Lee Van Cleef, Earl Holliman, and Brian Donlevy who carried the movie. Richard Conte I was never a big fan of Richard Conte either, though he is effectively sadistic. But I think, yeah.
I agree with your assessment.
Wild kind of falls short, let's say.
I agree with your assessment about Cornel Wilde. I've never seen him in anything where he's the reason the movie's better. He got into directing later on, and the films he directed, he makes it obvious he's his biggest fan.
Oh yeah, his direction is not any better. If anything, it's worse um, than his acting.
Oh God, I remember seeing The Naked Prey, and I'm just going, "Wow, you are really impressed with yourself, aren't you?" But um, he's just totally outshined by all of his co-stars, and I agree with what you said about Holloman, Van Cleef, and who'd you say? Who else did you say? Oh, Don Levy.
Don Levy.
They just they steal the movie right from under him, and don't give it back. And Richard Conte just, I associate Richard Conte with The Godfather, and so I haven't seen a lot of movies where he's still young, and I thought he was wonderful in this movie. Just, I mean, he did such a great job making us hate him in the first scene, and as the film progressed, that smirk, you just want to wipe it off his face, and you're hoping that Lieutenant Diamond will do something, anything, to make him just give pause and not be so cocky.
Yeah, I think for me,
I was going to
Conte
say, I
is
also
like
think there's a
the.
nice twist.
Sorry, say that again.
I said I also think there's a nice twist at the end. So when it comes to plot, anyway, sorry. What was everybody saying?
No, I was just agreeing that I think Richard Conte is the real star of this. I will admit, I didn't look up. Because I hadn't seen it. I very purposely didn't look anyone up. So it took me about 5 minutes before, maybe 10 minutes before I was like, "Oh, that's Don Barzini," because I don't think I had ever seen him in a role where he was young, actually. But I thought he was easily the best part of the movie. Personally, I thought he was so effortless in his malice and that smugness that Dave, you mentioned, is all so perfect. The way he speaks to literally everyone in the film is pitch perfect. I think the main people who match him, actually, the main person who matches him at all is probably Brian Donlevy as Joe. I don't think Cornell Wilde is terrible in this film. I don't think he's great. I think the most interesting thing about this film is learning. After I watched it, I looked it up, and I found it very interesting that he has effectively no screen chemistry with his wife, because Jean Wallace, who plays Susan, the girl he's ostensibly obsessed with, was his wife at the time, and I just the whole time. And I know this is like a pretty classic movie trope, but he's in love with Susan, who is the girl of Mr. Brown. And there's another girl called Rita, who's obviously in love with him, played by Helen Stanton, who I also thought was pretty great in her very small part in the film. But it was one of those things where and it's such a cliche, but I'm like, why are you looking at the wrong girl? Go with the other one. Just choose the right one, just for once. Someone choose the right one. But then spoiler alert, she gets fridged and it's terrible. I also really enjoyed Helen Walker in the film. Personally, I thought her performance is the sort of as Alicia, and we're not getting into spoilers just yet, but her performance, which is mildly unhinged, I would argue, is kind of wonderful, even though she doesn't show up until roughly the midpoint of the film. But she also really carries her scenes. It doesn't help that she's against Cornell Wilde most of the time, but she's just dialing it to 11 in most of her scenes, and I really enjoyed all of them.
I guess this is her last film.
I believe it was, yes, which is interesting. I don't know that I've seen her in a lot of stuff either, but I definitely want to now, because I found her very enjoyable to watch.
Not to completely rag on Cornell Wilde.
Go ahead.
The fact that he, well, I'm going to defend him a little bit. It doesn't help okay, he doesn't have a lot of on-screen charisma to begin with. It doesn't help that I think his character is kind of underwritten in the first place. You know, the whole I'm in love with the gangster's girl isn't really explored in all that much depth.
Especially since he's never really met her. It's
right.
all obsession from a distance. And
it's actually kind of creepy when you think about it.
Yeah,
But
no, it's not kind of creepy. It's creepy.
But like so I'll go to bat for Cornell Wilde on this. He wasn't given a very dynamic character to begin with. It's obvious most of the attention and effort was put into the antagonists by far.
Yeah, it is interesting. Like, it'd be interesting to see this movie rewritten so that Mr. Brown was the protagonist of the film. I would actually like to see that. That would be an interesting remake. Just remake this film, but make Mr. Brown the bad guy, the main character.
It wouldn't be too much of a stretch. The first movie that popped into my head was Scarface.
Yeah.
With a main character who has almost no redeeming qualities, and he's the main focus of the film. And speaking of the 1983 version in particular, I mean, the police presence in that entire film was almost non-existent. Almost the entire focus is on, this arrogant, brash, criminal. That's the closest comparison I can think of off the top of my head. But yeah, I would have preferred a movie with Conti's character as the main one. I think that would have been awesome. Yeah. Especially once his world starts crumbling around him.
Yeah, the end of the movie, which we should probably get into. So let's get into more detail. So, dear listeners, if you have not seen this movie, I fully recommend pausing right now, watching, and coming back. It's only 90 minutes or 88, something like that. It's not very long anyway. So just watch it, come back. We're going to talk a little more detail about the plot. But I think you would be better served to watch it without knowing what's about to happen, personally. But let's get into it a little bit. So the main thing I want to talk about is just how Richard Conti's character being so smug and honestly kind of justifiably so. Like, he supplanted his boss as the boss. He's resented by literally everyone around him, and he just sort of glides through the movie being like, of course you resent me, I'm the best. And by the time things start to crumble around him, which happened because so spoiler alert, he's got this girlfriend, but he's also got a wife who he told everyone is dead, but she's not dead. She's just in a sanatorium in hiding, and terrified of him. And this is one of those things, again, like, it's a little bit convoluted, but in a way that when you're watching it, you're like, oh yeah, this makes sense. What did you guys think of all these the twists and turns in this film? Because I found them to be, thrilling is not exactly the right word, but like, I really enjoyed every time there was a twist. I was like, oh yeah, here it comes. Like, this is great. Like, give me more of this. Like, give me the melodrama. Give me the weirdness. I want it all. How do you guys feel about the plot? How many twists and turns it takes, and how well they were affected. And Howard, let's start with you this time.
Well, I think the ultimate twist, that he had the wrong murder victim, is the strongest one, and it makes sense. It sort of justifies everything that comes before. The investigation has a strong logic to it. So the saddest one, of course, is the death of the quote unquote girlfriend, though actually you'd probably more describe her as, I think we can use 4 little words on this one, can't we? Buddy, more than anything else.
Well, she's clearly in love with him, but he
wants to get laid.
Yeah, she's clearly
He
infatuated
just
with
uses
him,
her. Yeah,
but he just uses her. Yeah.
right. I do think the opening is a little odd. I've never noticed this before because the guy says you've been investigating this for 6 months and you've spent $18,000. And I'm going, that's a huge amount of money to spend on an investigation where you have gotten absolutely nowhere. And then you have the audacity to ask for $18,000 more without giving any indication that it will in any way help you. So I was actually on his boss's side there. I said, "Nah, you just don't have it. You can't, And it's not until the girlfriend tries to kill herself, the mistress tries to kill herself, that everything changes. The biggest shock and twist, well, is Earl Holliman and Lee Van Cleef, but I don't know if we want to talk about that yet. But overall, I think the story is interesting and engaging, especially once it really starts.
Yeah, I would really like to talk about Fanti and Mingo, but I think we need to maybe let's get through this part of the talk first because I feel like they deserve a whole section of us just talking about them because they are super interesting for so many reasons. But Dave, same question. How did you feel about the plot? Anything stick out to you? How did you enjoy the twists and turns like I did? Give us your 2 bits.
I think, I don't know, not necessarily a plot twist until later, but I grew increasingly interested in Brian Dunleavy's character. McClure is he's in the very first scene, Mr. Brown pretty much is humiliating him and belittling him from the get-go.
It's very Tarantino.
Bragging that he stole everything that McClure had, and now McClure works for him, and you can just see McClure during a slow burn throughout this movie. And I've never been a giant Dunleavy fan. I think he's been mid-cast in more movies than anyone I can think of, but he's really good in this one. And watching him just stew, and yet still being, obedient and loyal, while getting increasingly angry, sets up a great scene at the end when he wants to take back everything that Mr. Brown has taken away from him, and he thinks that Mingo and Fonte are going to help him. And when that doesn't happen, my heart just went out to McClure because he thought he was going to get back everything he'd lost. And from a filmmaking perspective, we're doing spoilers, right?
Oh yeah, we're well into spoiler territory.
From a filmmaking perspective, one of my favorite scenes in the film is when he is betrayed by Fante and Mingo, and he's going to die, and that's when the soundtrack becomes completely silent to reflect that McClure is hard of hearing, and so he doesn't hear the bullets when they take him out. That was a neat touch. Probably my favorite aesthetic touch in the entire film.
Yeah. In terms of the filmmaking, so there's, I agree with you completely. I'm glad you brought it up because I was about to. That is one of my favorite scenes in the movie. He's had this hearing aid the whole time, and when he's finally trying to betray Mr. Brown, but Mr. Brown gets the upper hand, Mr. Brown says, "I'm going to do you a favor. You won't have to hear the bullets," and the whole film goes silent. I adored that moment. I also really appreciated earlier in the film that they used the hearing aid as a torture device on Cornell Wilde. I thought that was really clever for the time.
Torture by jazz.
Torture by jazz, which,
I'd have used country music for myself, but that's me.
But it doesn't have the drums, unfortunately.
Okay, rap music then.
So yeah, all these little touches I think are great. I think there's also one of my favorite just shots in recent memory, I would argue for me, is in that same scene right before that, right before the silent scene. There's a moment where Mr. Brown is entering this aircraft hangar and McClure is waiting for him, and it's very dark. And as they're confronting one another, Lee Van Cleef lights a cigarette in the background. Just aesthetically, I think one of the most beautifully composed things I've seen in the last couple of months, for sure. And this film is full of stuff like that too. There's lots of long takes. There's lots of beautifully composed frames. The Joseph H. Lewis and John Alton, the director and cinematographer, respectively, clearly know how to point a camera at stuff and how to use the lighting very effectively. Really great use of like key lighting, really great use of like negative space and dark rooms. I really enjoyed the aesthetic of noir films in particular, generally speaking, but this one in particular, I very much enjoyed how well composed it was visually.
Yeah, Lewis, he's done other noir films that I thought were better, but this one is, I agree with you, this is probably his best looking film of his career, for sure.
Yeah. It's I don't know that I've seen a lot of them, but I would like of his films in particular, but like this is, I think, one of the best shot ones I've seen in a while. And it's frustrating actually. There's Ignite Films is coming out with 4K of this with a 70th anniversary restoration, and I actually cannot wait now because the version I saw on Tubi is only like a standard def. So I'm very excited to see a full restoration of this movie, because I imagine that's going to be a very rewarding thing to point my eyeballs at. And similarly, I just want to come back around. I also really thought that Ryan Donlevy as McClure was great. I thought the whole subplot with him stewing and slowly building towards this moment of betrayal and then ultimately being double-crossed by Fanti and Mingo was so well executed. And Donlevy in particular being, especially in those last moments where he's, finally breaks and is like, let's just do this. And then when he gets betrayed and he's like, oh no, I'm the one getting done. I thought all of that was wonderful to watch. And Conte, through the whole thing, just that calm, cool, confident performance. Again, I think smug, we've said it a couple of times, but smug is like the best word to describe this character. And I also really enjoy right at the very end when it all comes crashing down and he's a bit revealed, was also brilliantly performed, personally.
Yeah, and because he's such a hateable character who seemingly has no remorse or empathy of any kind. I kind of appreciated the fact that he doesn't die at the end. That he gets he gets to live with what he's done, and think about it, how he lost it all due to his own arrogance. Yeah.
Howard, do you have anything else you want to add plot-wise before we get into talking about Lee Van Cleef and Earl Holliman?
I agree with that, the betrayal of Ryan Donlevy. As I remember when I saw it and the two gunmen come out and there's this pause and I said, oh, they're going to shoot you. That's a very enjoyable moment. But no, I think maybe we've covered it all. I'm trying to think. I think the ending where the two sort of walk off together, I'm not sure that has an emotional resonance because they still don't really know each other.
I honestly don't even think they're walking off together. I think that last, it's not like they come together. They just both head off in the same direction.
Yeah.
They're not really even, they're side by side, but that's because there's nowhere else for them to be. It's only one exit and they have to head to it together. I don't imagine at the end of this film that they have gotten together. I think that, by that point in the story, Diamond has realized he's maybe not the best for anyone, especially after Rita's been killed. And he's maybe hopefully realizing that he's not so much in love with Susan as he is obsessed with her. And, what it has cost people for that.
Yeah,
So
it probably would have.
I don't see them
Go
getting
ahead.
together at the end. Is all I'm trying to say. I see them,
It
and even if he's like, "Let's get together," her being like, "No, who are you?"
yeah,
You know, like,
it would have rang false if they had.
yeah,
And if this film were remade today, there'd be some contrived point where they did get together. So it ended with the way it should have ended.
yeah, yeah. And I would just also echo, yeah, that moment where Fanti and Mingo, like, you can tell from like a mile away that the guns are going to turn from Brown to McClure. And it's very well executed, that moment. So I definitely agree with you there, Howard.
Hey, do you think it's because we've seen it as, it's been a trope in so many films since then, where they turned the guns in surprise? Maybe back in 1955, that was more unexpected at the time.
It could have been. I'd have to think and
Yeah, I don't know. I would
try to
actually, this is
remember whether
the kind of
it
question I would
happened
ask
in.
Howard about.
So I'm not sure. Yeah, and I'd have to say I'm not really sure. I think it's a good question. I mean, it's not as clear cut as if you saw Double Indemnity when they couldn't start the car. That was the first time that was ever done, and now it's a cliche. So I don't know if that's. I'd have to say I just don't know. I've seen tons of film noir, but I can't think of anything really like that. Doesn't mean it isn't there. It just remembers that I'm getting old.
I would imagine this is entirely conjecture on my part, so please don't anyone take this as like a film history lesson. But like, I would imagine that had been done before, probably in the 40s. I imagine it was nowhere near as common as it's common knowledge as it is today. So it's probably somewhere in the middle, would be my guess. But again, like, this is, if I wanted to know the answer to this question, Howard is the person I probably would have asked. So, so let's get to the thing we're all sort of dancing around a little bit. Let's talk about Fanti and Mingo. Let's talk about Lee Van Cleef and Earl Holliman. So just to get us started, again, I saw this movie last night, 12 hours ago. And one of the first, if you look at my like note sheet that I kept as I was watching it, at about halfway through the film, I wrote down, these guys are, in heavy quotes, best friends, right?
Their relationship is more than professional.
Yeah. And it's obviously 1955. There's no like confirmation of anything, but like, these guys are best friends, right? Like, they're obviously together, right? Like, they're a unit.
Oh, come on, they're fucking.
They're gay.
Yeah, they're gay. They're gay as hell. It's kind of wonderful, actually. Like, they're kind of an adorable couple in their own way. How did you guys find, like, maybe, and Howard, this is maybe something you can speak to, but so maybe we'll start with you. But like, how did you guys find that portrayal in the context of it being 1955? And how did it affect you? Yeah, let's start there.
Well, there's a book called The Celluloid Closet by Vito Russo, which is a history of how gays have been portrayed in film from Silent Days to up to when he published the film. And it changes the way I watch movies. From that point on, I look for the coded characters. I wonder what's going on underneath. I'm still finding characters that I think could be coded gay. So then I was watching it. I hadn't seen it until after I saw the scene. Lee Van Cleef is in bed and says, we've got to go out. We've got to do this. And Earl Holliman is in the bed next to him. I'm going, okay, I got it. I'm not sure how it can be any more obvious. They got it. I got it. And the two other scenes that really, for me, show this is the one where Lee Van Cleef gets money from Brian Donlevy and gives half of it to Earl Holliman, to Mango's, and Mango just looks at him with adoration in his eyes. And then the most moving moment is when they're hiding out, like in the basement or somewhere of the hotel. And he puts his arm on Dave Van Cleef's shoulder and says, "Can we just go away after this? Can we just leave and go someplace else?" And I'm going, "Oh my God." What is really interesting and what I like about this is that these people are not murderers because they're gay. They are murderers that just happen to be gay. And that's a big distinction, because when you start with the new Hollywood, you start getting villainous gay after gay after gay who are that way because they are gay. And that was a hard period to get through. But this one is different. And that's why you like them more. Because they're not murderous and they're not henchmen because they're gay, and they don't do the things they do because they're gay. They just happen to be gay. It adds to their character rather than distract from.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. I think it's actually it's the kind of thing that I really like today when, like, because obviously, I'm a little younger. I grew up, my formative film years were in the 90s. And in the 90s, if there was a gay couple on screen, you knew it because they would tell you. And it's been a fairly recent thing that, like, people are just allowed to be gay. And this is, just to be clear, this is a gross oversimplification, but, like, it's a more recent thing, at least in my mind, that, like, people can just be gay on screen, and that's just a thing. Like, it's just like, oh yeah, that guy's gay. No one talks about it. It's just like they'll just mention their boyfriend, or they'll have little moments like the one you just described. So in some ways, this film feels way ahead of its time, because it never, like, it's very clear to me that these guys are gay, but it's never feels the need to point it out. Like, whether or not it would use that to villainize them, it just doesn't point it out at all. It's just like you just are trusted to figure out that these two guys are together. And I really liked that personally. I thought it was really, it's not often you watch a movie from the 40s or 50s or 60s or even 90s where that's true. So I really appreciated that little extra dynamic. And it's also done so economically. Like, they don't have a ton of screen time. They don't have a lot of development. It's all like little moments in background and they might be the most fleshed out characters of anyone in the story, because they just are given
most memorable characters.
Yeah, and they're given the most development, the most development with the least amount of screen time. It's kind of wonderful to watch it unfold. And by the time at the end, because, like, one of the big turning points of the film is that Mr. Brown tries to kill them with a bomb, and Fanty is killed, but Mingo isn't. And in those moments where Mingo realizes that Fanty is dead and has a complete breakdown, like, it's kind of heartbreaking. It's not even kind of heartbreaking. It's a heartbreaking moment for those. And, like, it was kind of felt really progressive in a way that I did not expect from a film from 1955, personally. And I thought it was kind of wonderful. Howard and I have been doing all the talking. Dave, how did you feel about these characters and their portrayal?
Well, I think, it's what humanized these two characters and made them somewhat endearing. I agree with everything you guys said. A lot, like you said, a lot of the films from the 90s onward, any gay aspect to a plot was either for sensationalism or a catalyst for tragedy, and this wasn't. And it made them sympathetic antagonists. So the only person left that we actively hate throughout the film is Conti's character. I enjoyed watching these two together. They reminded me sometimes of an old married couple, especially when, Fante's telling Mingo, you need to eat something, and that little argument there. I mean, that's what a couple that has been together, regardless of their gender, would say to each other. That's a conversation that I've had with my wife. And I thought that was a neat aspect. And plus, I found myself wondering, wow, can you? I love my wife dearly, but I wouldn't want to go to work with her. So these guys are around each other 24/7, and they make it work. I mean, that's a relationship to be admired, if you ask me.
Yeah, they to put it euphemistically, they definitely share everything. And yeah,
Ozzy and Harriet bedroom with, well, not Ozzy and Harriet because they shared the same bed, including a Ricky and Lucy bedroom with the table between the single bed.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember watching that scene, and like again by that point I'd already written down the best friends comment. But when they're in the twin beds in the same room, I was like, oh yeah, so they are 50s married. I get it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this was an aspect of the film that I did not expect. I had no idea about, and I was I found it very rewarding to watch. Just it gave me a little bit more. It's interesting that when a piece of media can like change your perspective, or at the very least, is it good for me? Like, give me like the slightest amount of hope about things, because we often think about. And my generation is very happy to point out that like we changed things, but this stuff has been happening forever, and I like that it's portrayed 70 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Again, gross oversimplification on my part, but I think you get what I'm picking up what I'm trying to put down. And not for nothing, I thought that not only were the characters great, I really enjoyed Lee Van Cleef and Earl Hollywood in these roles. I thought they had wonderful chemistry together, and I thought that a lot of their scenes.
What was that, sir?
More so than the leads had.
Oh yeah, for sure. And again, like all these things we're talking about definitely make them. They are the most memorable characters in the entire thing. Like them and McClure. I think all the bad guys are the memorable characters in this film, and I really loved it.
Well, one thing's for sure, I never in my life thought I would ever see Lee Van Cleef play a gay man.
Well, he also plays one in one of his. Oh no, I'm thinking of Jack Palance plays one in one of his spaghetti westerns. Never mind.
Well,
Lee Van Cleef, Jack Palance,
Well, before we move on, I think we've covered almost everything. But before we moved on, we are coming up to, I think, the end of the show. Is there anything you guys want to talk about that we have not covered already before we take a quick break and then answer the exit question?
Well, I did want to talk about Joseph Lewis just for a second. He directed one of my very favorite film noirs, which was Gun Crazy.
Yes.
I don't know if you've seen it. Okay. To me, that's
on it. So.
What's that?
I did a podcast on it.
Oh, okay. To me, that's his best film. He also did another one that's not so widely known called So Dark the Night, which is kind of a quirky film noir. It's a little perplexing.
That's the Oedipus Rex one.
Yeah. I kind of enjoyed that one too. Not as much as this one, but it is worth seeking out because it's got some elements that you typically don't see in film noir, especially its main character.
There's one little thing that I just noticed because when I was watching the credits, it said Whit Bissell was in the film. I just love that name. So whenever I always want to see a film if Whit Bissell is in it for no other reason than that name. But I kept watching and he never shows up. All of his scenes were deleted, but he's still in the credits.
Well, and I was also glad to see John Hoyt in there. John Hoyt is another guy who just plays wonderfully despicable characters, and he's only in one scene, but He was pretty enjoyable in that one.
I similarly, just to get it on the record, I also similarly thought that Ted DeCorsia was pretty great in one scene as Bettini. I mean, overall, I think this film is, and I hate to rag on the guy even more, but like, with the exception of Cornell Wilde, who is, to be clear, I think, fine. I thought this film was wonderfully performed across the board. And just with, like, it's interesting because I don't actually think Cornell Wilde is bad. I just think he's so outshone by literally everyone that it feels bad.
Well, you could say that about his whole career. I mean, you can say that about his whole career.
Yeah, I think it's a different podcast, but I think it's a conversation I'm sure people have had before. Anyway, well, let's take a quick break so that we can hear from another Lambcast show. And then when we come back, we will answer our exit question.
Cinema Recall is available everywhere you find great podcasts.
The hell was that?
It's our voice promo guy.
Follow them on Facebook and Instagram under Cinema Recall Podcast and on Twitter at Cinema_Recall.
Vern, can we afford to have a voiceover guy?
We can't afford not to. He used to be a voice guy for movie trailers, but now he just follows me around and gives me movie trailer narration.
That's really sad.
What? Now we're giving him purpose in life. He now has a reason to go on.
Check out past episodes at cinemarecall.net. Promise it's fun!
We're back. So to close out the show, we're going to do the thing we usually do, which is to answer our exit question. This week's question revolves around a minor resurgence that film noir is having right now. On Amazon Prime Video, right now you can watch Nicolas Cage starring in Spider Noir, which is a mashup of Spider-Man and film noir, which, spoiler alert, is great if you haven't seen it. So my question for everyone here is, and we'll start with Howard, if you're going to take what genre or story today would you like to see mashed up with film noir in the same way that Spider Noir is superheroes and film noir?
Well, first of all, I've not seen Spider Noir, and I'm dying to see it, so I can't wait. Of all the characters in the Spider-Man movie, I thought, I would definitely like to see.
Oh, it's so good
with that guy.
Like not to go off on a rant here, but like Nicholas, this might be like my favorite Nicolas Cage thing in a while, and I'm a big Nicolas Cage fan, and he is landing somewhere in the vicinity. Like, if you can imagine a cross between Humphrey Bogart, Edward G. Robinson, Bugs Bunny, and Nicolas Cage at his most Nicolas Cagey, that's what we're talking about, and it's wonderful.
Definitely watch it in black and white.
Yeah, that makes sense. For me, not too original, but I've always wanted to combine film noir and science fiction, and I've always wanted to write something, except that the technology of the future I'm not really comfortable with. It's sort of surprising because I'm not the fan of Blade Runner that other people are. I find it rather dull, and the most interesting characters are the non-human characters. Now I say, you're in trouble if the non-human characters are more interesting and better actors than the human characters. But I would love to do, a private detective in the future that uses future technology. The technology that we're going. I could see on ChatGPT asking questions and getting answers, and then doing this and doing that and doing this. So I would really like to do a detective series on that, but I'm not confident in myself for that.
Yeah. I mean, I was going to throw it to Dave next, but I'm just going to jump in here with mine because my answer was science fiction detective story. So we're on the same wavelength there. And I also think, you mentioned you're not the biggest fan of Blade Runner, which is kind of a future noir. But to me, that just is a pure signal to write your own better version. I would love to see that.
Yeah.
There is a film that came out about 5 years ago. I mean, it's not a great film, but it's watchable, called Reminiscence, that had Hugh Jackman in it. And it is a science fiction film with a lot of narrative and aesthetic noir touches.
Yeah.
I never saw that one. It passed me by. Maybe I should check it out.
It passed a lot of people by, but it was sent to me for review. Otherwise, I would have passed it by. And I'm about halfway through it, going, hey, "This isn't bad." Definitely gets a lot of inspiration from classic film noir.
Yeah. Well, Dave, how about you? What would you like to see mashed up with noir these days?
I'd like to see a film noir and horror mashup. I think the two genres already share some aesthetic similarities, and you could conceive a pretty cool vampire or werewolf film with noir elements. Of course, the movie would have to be in black and white, but yeah, I think a horror film noir mashup would be interesting.
Yeah, I think you're right. They do share a ton of aesthetics and even just like cinematography tricks. I think it's a pretty natural fit. And I would love to see, like, my thing is I would love to see something with a little more modern sensibility, but shot and written with those noir tropes, which I think is one of the things I really responded to with Spider Noir, in that, like, it's a very modern story with a very modern cast, but clearly shot with a love of film noir. And that's what I would like to see. And in the same way that, like, I think space and westerns really mash up really well together, I would love to see like a proper future detective story film noir. So yeah, that's where I'm going. Well, unless we have anything else to talk about, I think we can call it there. The Big Combo, good movie. Totally watch it. Available to watch in various ways for free, but also if you can find a great copy, it'd totally be worth owning and seeing it in the highest resolution that your eyeballs can handle. In the meantime, Howard, where can people find you to see your work?
Well, I've actually been more active than I used to be, but mainly just on my blog. I used to have a podcast called Pop Art, and I started having health issues, and I feel like it's just too much to do. So I've been writing for my blog, and I have right now some reoccurring themes on it. I did write an essay on Alfred Hitchcock, what I call the four or five periods of Hitchcock. One before that was film noir and the difference between male-driven and female-driven film noir. I have I'm doing my top 10 or top 20 films in certain categories. I've done apocalyptic films. Last one was 20 films about Christianity, but I've done films, all sorts of things in that area. I've done something called line readings, where I just list 10 lines that I've really loved. So far, I've only been focusing on 30 to the 50s. And then finally, something that I think I'm going to make into my new podcast called Stumblebum, in which I write about movies that I had never heard of, but accidentally ran across somewhere on TV. And so far, I've done American Murderer, Mr. K, and a 1940s film called None Shall Escape, as well as a film called The Astronaut. So what I'm going to do is have a guest, and he'll watch the movie, or they'll watch the movie, and then we'll talk about it. And I think that'll be less stressful for me.
And honestly, that's a great idea for a podcast. I kind of can't wait to hear it.
Thank you.
And for those who are listening, I'm sure that Richard will put it in the description of the show, but it's howardcasner.wordpress.com, I believe.
No, it's Rant. Oh, yes, I think it is howardcasner.wordpress.com. It's called Rantings and Ravings, but I think, yeah, it's howardcasner.wordpress.com.
Excellent. Well, like I say, I'm sure Richard, who can confirm right now, thanks, Richard, we'll put that in the description. Dave, how about you? Where can people find you and your work?
My work is at freekittensmovieguide.com. I try to keep physical media alive as best I can with reviews of upcoming Blu-ray and 4K.
Nice. And for me, I'm a freelance film critic, film and TV critic. So you can find me in a lot of different places. The easiest way to find me, though, is to follow me on the socials. Predominantly on Threads and Instagram. I am at SmassioAF. You can also find my personal portfolio site at stretched.ca and my new Canadian film project, which is called northernreel.ca, where we talk exclusively about Canadian film and to Canadian film people. But with that, that is the end of the show. Thank you so much for listening. We hope you enjoyed it. Check out The Big Combo because it's great. And we'll see you next time, back hosted by Richard. Thanks, everyone.
You've been listening to the Lambcast. If you have an idea for a show or would like to join us on the Lambcast, contact us at largeassmovieblogs.com.
Find us on Facebook, just search for Lambcast, or on X, formerly Twitter, at Lambcast. And you can find us on YouTube as well. The Lamb site can be found at largeassmovieblogs.com. We'd also love it if you would leave a review on iTunes.